End of more than half a century of television broadcasting. Wingham-based CKNX-TV is going off the air. Two other Canadian stations are also closing today. Scott Miller has a look back at the little station that could.
CKNX television hit Canadian airwaves on November the 18th, 1955. It was one of the first TV stations in the entire country, serving one of Canada's smallest markets. But W.T. Doc Cruikshank, who'd been running a successful radio station in Wingham since 1926, thought he'd give TV a try. What was then a massive investment of $500,000 got the station up and running.
Well, we had a sort of a arrangement with our newscasters to bring every little neighborhood into the news, at least for some reason, at some time. Didn't matter if they only took a pig to market. Let's get it on, because we feel that the listeners in that area will know that we're following them up and news that does happen.
That intensely local formula included live local entertainment, from country to rock and roll.
It's got the one description.
But there were also many challenges. A fire in 1962 when the station burned to the ground, only to be rebuilt 2 years later. And increasing competition on the airwaves. That was harder to fight. And in 1970, CKNX was sold to the owners of CFPL-TV in London.
Our purchase of CKNX brings together two long-established broadcasting organizations which have been serving Western Ontario for a good many years.
More ownership changes would follow, and more competition as Canadians gained access to an increasing number of channels. By 1992, massive layoffs had left CKNX-TV with a local staff of 7.
This is the final supper hour newscast from our Wingham studios. Starting tomorrow, all of the news on TV8 will be coming from our London studios.
And now, 17 years later, the current owners, CTV Globe Media, have announced they will not renew the station's license. Don Mumford is general manager of CKNX-TV.
You know, we're seeing today Red Deer is closing. Victoria, CHEK-TV in Victoria is closing. Much bigger stations and in fact much bigger markets than Midwestern Ontario. This problem has become a crisis, and CKNX closing today is really indicative of the kinds of pressures, financial pressures, that all TV stations are facing right across the country.
Well, this was the first camera that we used at CKNX television.
Not many people have worked at CKNX-TV longer than Ward Robertson. The Wingham resident says his 30-plus years on the job were some of the best of his life.
You could mourn and moan about the passing, or take great delight in the pioneering that this little television station took part in, and the advances that it made in broadcasting over its 55 years, and take a hold of that and just celebrate that to the nth degree.
While I will continue to work here covering stories from Midwestern Ontario, it will be my last sign-off for CKNX. So in honor of the station and all the fabulous people who've worked here over the years, this has been Scott Miller reporting for CKNX-TV.
You've been watching CKNX-TV Channel 8 from Wingham, Ontario. Good night.
And thank you, Scott. A busy night ahead down at the John Labatt Centre. Our Norman James is at the site of the Eurocan Cup final to set the scene for us this evening. Norm?
Dan, they're rocking out the music. People are starting to filter onto the property here, all in advance of tonight's historical Eurocan Cup final. On one hand, you have the powerhouse out of Switzerland, Zug, coached by an ex-NHLer in Doug Shedden. You see Markkanen, an ex-NHL goaltender, between the pipe. On the other hand, you have the London Pro Knights, Sam Gagner scoring all those goals, Rob Schremp, another ex-Knight, scoring big goals in crucial games, and an ex-Guelph Storm, Todd Bertuzzi, joined this team over a game of golf over the weekend, got an assist against Munich on Saturday. Maybe he will factor into tonight's scoring. Now, this tournament is not all about hockey. There is a charitable component. We'll have more on that later in sports. We'll introduce you to one individual who will benefit from this tournament, and we'll give you the grapes on another individual who will be dropping the ceremonial first puck. For the time being, I'm going to have to get my show ready, but we will be back live from the John Labatt Centre in about half hour's time. Danny?
Thanks a lot in the meantime, Norm.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Just before we get you over to Jay, emergency workers are building shelters for thousands of endangered families as Hurricane Jimena roars towards Mexico's Baja Peninsula. Now, forecasters say Jimena, a dangerous Category 4, could rake the southern portion of that peninsula by tomorrow evening. The storm is currently packing winds of about 250 kilometers an hour. And Jay, that's dangerous.
Oh, very, very significant. As you say, a Category 4. They do expect, or we are expecting, that it will weaken as it starts to come into the Baja California area. But you can see it's getting awfully close, and in fact, it's heading in almost a northerly direction, and that is actually quite unusual for hurricanes that form in through the Pacific. We don't have any weather like that in our forecast. In fact, we have had just a few clouds around through the day today. Every now and then it would cloud over a bit. Temperatures are a little lower than we would expect as we end the month of August. As you can see, 18 degrees through a good portion of Midwestern Ontario, including into the Sarnia area, 16 in through Goderich, 18 as we head towards the Kitchener area, 19 in Simcoe as it is in Woodstock, 20 degrees the current temperature in London. As far as precipitation is concerned, we don't have any in the area. We do have a little bit of cloud every now and then. It's just a little bit of cirrus cloud, as you can see, that has been moving by. I'm not looking for any precipitation, but we will look for a little cirrus cloud every now and then. But by and large, overnight tonight we'll have comparatively clear skies. Likely see a little bit of fog patches, particularly that will be in through some river valleys, simply because the old temperature is going to be dropping off just a little bit overnight tonight. In fact, we're going down into single digits just to right across the whole area. 5 degrees for the overnight low through London to Strathroy, 6 degrees if you're a little bit further to the south and closer to the Lake Erie area, 5 degrees in through Woodstock, but just 4 for the overnight low as we head into the Stratford area. In fact, some parts could see a little risk of frost. I'm not saying it's going to be a killing frost or anything like that, but just a few little patches of it from time to time. 6 degrees, as you can see, in through Sarnia to the Grand Bend area, 7 degrees for the overnight low in through Chatham. Midwestern Ontario, if you're close to the lake, temperatures around 6 degrees, but if you're inland, once again, temperature around 4 degrees, and in fact, as I mentioned, could even see a few little patches of some frost, particularly in through the higher elevations, in through the Dundalk area. 14 degrees at 10 o'clock tonight with comparatively clear skies, comparatively light winds, a few clouds as I mentioned around, dropping down to 5 overnight tonight, and then 13 first thing or early tomorrow morning. As I say, a few fog patches could be around, but a very light breeze out of the north to 5 kilometers an hour. And the afternoon, I think we can get it all the way up to 23 degrees with just a few clouds in the skies. We have a fair amount of sunshine to talk about on the 7-day planner, and I'll do that later, Dan.
All right, thanks a lot, Jay. So, was overnight parking an overnight success? After the break, Derek Rogers on the city's experiment and whether it will shape future parking plans.
Ahead on Health and Home, they say to treat a hangover, drink lots of water and get plenty of rest. But eating asparagus?
And some awful scenes in California right now as wildfires scorch that state. We'll tell you how many homes are now at risk in just a few minutes.
Snoring